Hi, marketers. This is Dots, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is Jonathan Pollinger, a renowned social media expert. We will discuss B2B social media marketing strategies that help small businesses. I know you guys are ready, so let's get it. Jonathan, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm great, and it's brilliant to be here, and I look forward to our conversation, Dodds. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by, yeah, sure. Do you want to start by telling us about yourself, your background, and your role?
Absolutely, yes. So I've been mainly a freelance social media trainer for 14 years now. I used to work as an employee in a 20,000 person company. There's a
Mhm.
little story there, so I'll just briefly go over that. So when I joined
Please.
that company, I was employee number 167, and I kind of like set up a mini intranet back in the late 90s, just putting a few web pages together.
Mhm.
And fast forward to 2009, and I was running a global intranet for 20,000 people. So it was quite a journey, working in the internal comms area. And so I've always had an interest in using technology, bringing people
Mhm.
together,
Yeah.
conversations, using messaging, that kind of thing. And so when I was made redundant in 2009, kind of made what a lot of people thought crazy decision at the time to go freelance
Yeah.
as a social media trainer. So I just sort of started off giving a few talks around a few towns and cities in Gloucestershire,
Yeah.
and one day some people came up and said, "Oh, could you tell us some more about this? We found it really interesting and we'll pay you some money." So I thought, right, this is it. And yeah, so that was kind of like the start. So been training wide variety of businesses since, more recently, as you say, sort of focusing on small businesses and quite a few B2B, but
Mhm.
also in partnership with a guy called Kareem Dastagir, I
Okay.
have founded an agency called Boost Social Agency, where we specialize in B2B and small businesses. So we do strategies, we set up ad campaigns, and we produce and manage content for that kind of business.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really long road to success, and I am inspired. It's just been 13 years in the game, relatively young. So, thanks for sharing that. There is something else I learned about you, which is awesome. And if you're listening and you are in the performance marketing space, you know that, as much as you want to get creative with running your campaign management, sometimes there are times where it's kind of like you're walking on, I guess, eggshells, right? Or, you are living in a cardboard because you might risk being banned or you might risk some limitations from whether it's Facebook or Google or stuff like that. So I know, you help companies or brands or agencies get through some of these issues when they come, in terms of like account restrictions and things like that. So
Yeah.
do you want to give us a little bit of a detail on that? I guess without spilling too much trade secrets.
Well, that's actually the thing, because there aren't really any trade secrets to spill there or share. I think
Okay.
it's not like I've got any special contacts at Meta, for example, or anything like
That's
that.
that's what I was thinking initially.
But that's what a lot of people think. But what I have got is I have got a route in, which is handy, that a lot of people listening will probably know about. So that's like the Meta Support Pros chat that a number of people have got access to, but seems quite a few
Mhm.
of my clients haven't got access to. So that's like at least a route into Meta and for starting a conversation. And because I've been talking to them for a long time, obviously spending quite a bit of budget with them because of clients, perhaps I get a little bit better access, if you like, and conversation
Mhm.
with them than
Mhm.
some other people. But that I don't know for sure. But generally, they kind of
Mhm.
like phone me back, for example, which is quite nice. So it's easy to be able to sort of like state an issue rather than having to type it all in a chat. But really,
Yeah.
do you know what? There's no secret to it. It's just to understand how they work, and the key word I think is patience. Um,
Okay.
I've just got a lot of patience because if anyone's dealt with, well, if anyone's dealt with any sort of customer services these days, it can
Mm,
sometimes be quite frustrating as a
yeah.
consumer, and it's no different with Meta. So you've just got to kind of be patient, remain cool, calm, and collected, and patience and persistence, I would say, are the secrets, if there are indeed any
If there are
secrets.
any, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've had some issues like that before, and maybe I wasn't patient. It's not. It was on the Google side. But yeah, yeah, I think you're right, and I think you've got it down. So that's a very good value you're offering to the market. Now, in terms of the topic, we're speaking off camera, and I was telling you I was really thrilled with the concepts of B2B and small businesses, and now
Yeah.
social media ties in into all of that. And as far as my exposure to marketing content is concerned, I don't think people talk about it in this manner. So I'm really again excited to talk to you about that. But my first question is, um, I know when it comes to like small or local businesses, there is a lot to do with the verticals, the industries.
Mhm.
So what are some of those industries where you've been really successful with this blend, if I'll put it that way?
Yeah, so quite a few really. That I wouldn't say there's a particular sort of vertical that I specialize in, but to give you some
Mm,
examples, legal sector, there's been a few. So
mm,
solicitors,
mm,
electronics and electrical, so quite sort of not really heavy industry, but quite sort of
mhm.
industrial, I suppose. So in that case, the client was dealing with large construction companies
Yeah,
and new build homes.
yeah.
Also, a few apps. So on the sort of software and app side, various apps for business services typically, and also software would be another example.
Mm,
Software for veterinary practices was another one.
vet.
So yeah, so in summary, industrial, I would say, electrical engineering, legal, and software and apps. Yeah, probably be the main sort of areas. But I wouldn't, there's no kind of like, there's no specialism there, and we certainly don't exclude anyone.
And
Obviously,
yeah.
obviously, the focus is on B2B. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense, makes sense. Something else that is sort of related to that is, as you're well aware, we are all, coming back to the whatever it is that reflects the human to human communication, right? Getting to know customers or prospects at a very personal level. So, in using, B2B social media marketing communication, how do you do that? How do you help businesses speak to their customers at a very personal level? I would assume that you have a bit of an edge with this approach than many of the other B2B um, businesses out there, because it's small businesses, you're growing from the inside out and so on. So do you have a playbook to how you stand out when it comes to personal one-to-one communication?
Yeah, I would say a few things there. I would say some things don't change. So
Okay.
they've always been true with the whole social media, and even in fact before social media, the whole sort of communication with clients, and that would be the importance of listening and understanding them.
Mm,
I think it's always been the case, and it's still kind of surprising, really, the case today. But it's still the case that there's plenty of companies out there who, particularly smaller businesses, who are doing it wrongly by being very broadcasty and very
yeah.
salesy. So they're
Yeah.
kind of thinking of themselves kind of, it's, you can understand it in a way because they wake up in the morning and they've got their business and they've got their service
Mm,
and they want to get it out there, and that's
mm,
what they know. But
mm,
actually, if you can kind of invert that and really and truly try and put yourself in your potential customer's shoes or your existing customer's shoes, I think that's the absolute key. So like the listening side of it. So I kind of got three words that I've always used: listen, connect, and engage, in that order. And I think ultimately that's sort of like the secret of success. And I've been using those words for, as I say, like 14 years, and that hasn't changed. So those sort of principles hold true today. I think the other one, which kind of like related to that, is very important to, after you've done that, is to engage with them in their sort of space. So find out where they
Okay.
hang out and look for opportunities to comment, to answer questions, to join in conversations, even a bit of private messaging if that's appropriate or possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Business messaging.
yeah, so in other words, not just again, it's comes back to the point that it's not just about posting out your content and shouting out your message. It's properly engaging and taking notice of the potential client. And then the third thing that I would say is just on the tech, really, is being up to date with the tech. So, for example, you mentioned business messaging. So obviously, apps work in different ways and new features come out around that. So it's having a sort of proper understanding of that so that you can either use that on behalf of the client, or on my training side, train them and show them how to use it. So for example, we've seen more integration with the Meta products and WhatsApp as an example.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
Yeah.
using that, whether it's natively or in ads. So yeah, so three things in summary there. I'd say listen, engage with comments and replies and that sort of stuff, and keep up to date with the changes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Again, you mentioned native and apps there, so I'm going to ask you this question. Um, we have paid social, we have
Yep.
organic social. When it comes to B2B small businesses, which one do you prefer in terms of attaining the commercial objectives? Whether, well, with small businesses, it's mostly short term, but you could answer this whether in the short term or in the long term view. But I would like to get your pick on which one you prefer,
Yep.
or if there's a different answer to not even preferring anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think compared with B2C, I think paid is more important. And I think my answer would be, funnily enough, my answer would be paid on the B2B side, but actually organic on
Mm,
the B2C side. Because on the B2C
mm,
side, you can have more fun. You've got more of a variety of people to deal with. There's that. Whereas B2B is a little bit more serious, but also a little bit more
yeah.
focused. And I think that's where your B2B ads come in. So if you've
Mm,
got which obviously you should have a very solid idea of your audience, and you've got a very niche product, or at least a particular service or a
yeah.
particular offering that makes it's got a USP that makes it a little bit different, then
Mm,
social ads in particular are absolutely tailor-made for that kind of service. So because you're reaching the right people with something special at the right time, and that should work, and it does work. So yeah, so I'd say paid, to answer your question, for B2B.
yeah. Okay. I wasn't expecting a definite answer. Thank you.
Well, I like to be straight. And actually, just to add
Yeah.
to that, it's interesting that
Mm,
most of our work is on the agency side. It is actually for paid ads. That tends to be what people come for, rather than organic content. So yeah, it's another interesting point.
okay. That makes sense. Now it's time to look at some of the, I guess, tactical ideas. I would assume anyone listening is aware of the basics, but just need to look at some of the other angles to which we can deploy, this B2B social media strategies for small businesses. And I can't wait to talk with you about this. There's so much going on in 2023 with
Yeah,
regards to the social media platform changes. It's crazy.
yeah,
And even the knowledge economy, it's all over the place right now. So that aside, my question is, when it comes to the concept of creative innovation, how you create, personalize, distribute content, and how you're able to do that efficiently. what are some of the, I guess, recent trends or solutions for which you guys have found to be useful going forward, and then our listeners can also, learn from that.
Yeah, so I would say, as I say, sort of giving a straight answer and coming straight to the point, that a couple of
Mm,
ideas, kind of related,
okay.
really.
Mm,
Carousels, I would say, are the way to go. As I say, sort of focusing on the paid side, but it works on the organic side as well. But
yeah. Mm,
carousel
mm,
ads, where you're putting a clear message on each of the carousels, not too
yeah.
much text, like a solid tip or something like that, that's intriguing
Mm,
enough or interesting enough for the reader to scroll through.
mm,
No more than about sort of 4 or 5, then that's a good sort of way into getting them to do something a bit deeper, like download a white paper or an ebook, or book an event or something, webinar or something like that, maybe. But
mm,
either as a preferably as a paid, but possibly as an organic strategy, that's a good one. Similarly, LinkedIn, and I think this is like a really underutilized one. LinkedIn is great for the PDF format. So
ah,
they recently knocked photo carousels on the head. For some reason, LinkedIn have
yeah.
got a habit of introducing features and then taking them away 2 or 3 months later, and photo carousels is one of them. But they didn't actually work very well anyway. So
Yeah.
it was always the case that doing a carousel in PDF was actually a better option, and that's still very much the case today. So how you would do, say, an image carousel in an ad on Meta, or organically on Instagram, if you do that in PDF on LinkedIn, that can work really well. Any PDF, I'd elaborate on that, in that, expand on that, in that any PDF content on LinkedIn displays well, tends to work well, and the algorithm likes it as well. So
Wow.
there's a lot of pluses for PDF. They call it document on LinkedIn, so you don't tend to find references to PDF, but where they talk about document, that's what they mean. They mean PDF. I think a lot of people associate PDF with like A4 size, which is
Mm,
understandable, because that tends to be the norm. Like your PDF, a Word
mm,
document,
mm,
and then you've got
mm,
it,
mm.
but no one can change it, and you print it out, etc. But you can have a 4-inch by 4-inch or 800 by 800 pixel PDF
Mhm.
design, no problems at all, and that can actually work really well on LinkedIn.
Wow, that's interesting. I think if you're listening now, that's something to explore. I know a lot of people already use carousels, but
Yeah,
PDFs, that is awesome. Something else you said is, having captions that are very straight to the point.
yeah,
As people do scan, I will see as of today, people are still fond of posting entire articles into the captions, and
yeah,
there is this fallacy of relevance. And what by that I mean, I got, I don't know, 200,000 followers. I post something like that, then
yeah,
people will think that's it's because of that content that I went viral, or that I got viral, or that I got the growth that I had. But I like what you said, because when you're dealing with B2B, even for small businesses, everybody is busy, right?
yeah,
From the supplier to the client or the customer. And so it's important to have, you know, scannable um
yeah.
scannable captions.
Bite
If I'll
size,
put
yeah,
it there, yeah,
yeah,
and that's something I've also I completely agree on that side of things, because as a user myself, I don't really have the time to scroll through your articles. I have
yeah,
hundreds of people that I follow and love their content, so I
yeah.
think that's something that is also worth exploring as well. But
Can I just add to that as well? Just add to
yes,
your
please,
point there, which is a very good point, in
yeah,
that I think if there's actually something extra there as well. I think, like, yes, there is the time thing, that you haven't got the time to read a volume of content. But you know what? If
mm,
you've actually got and you could try this yourself actually next time you're on social media, and the listeners can as well. So if you've just got a few words there, or like a sentence, do you know what? I think it's actually, if you've got that on the screen and you're looking
yeah,
at it, your
yeah.
brain can kind of almost absorb it without you having to read it. you know,
Mm-hmm.
if the message is strong enough and clear enough. So I think
Yeah, yeah,
that's why it's a really solid way to get the message across. But as soon as you get into like two sentences or too much text, then your brain goes, "Oh, I got to read this. I'm not sure if I can be bothered," kind of thing. But it's like just that short, clearly visible, understandable, absorbable message. That's the word, I think, absorbable. You kind of like
yeah,
can
yeah,
get it absorbed into the brain without the person
yeah.
even having to think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I have been for the past, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks now. I've
Mm.
been learning a lot about being on point with my
Yep.
communication, whether as a guest or in writing. I've even read the book, The New Articulate Executive by
Mhm.
Granville Too Good. So I agree with you. I think that also helps, even if you get to have a much longer content, but it's laid out in a way that's it's easily scannable. But there is another idea I would like to get from you, still on this subject.
Yep.
Hooks, psychological hooks, um, behavioral science hooks in
Yep.
the social media communication, in the social media copy. How have you tested that with B2B small businesses when you're writing copy and you know that this kind of copy is able to attract them? I'm not exactly talking about specific unique value propositions. I'm just
Mm.
talking about methods of writing on social that is
Yeah.
able to get the attention of people, whether it's long form or short form content.
Sure. So, a couple of things there. I think in terms of content, again, it's sort of like listening to what they want. So, if there are problems that they've got that they need solving, then that can be quite a good angle, for example. So, then the next question is, well, how do you find out what their problems are? So, simple answer there is actually even tools like Google and find out, what questions people are posting into Google. That can actually be quite a useful tool, and then translate that over to your headline, which is coming on to the next point, format. So you then create some sort of headline around that. But not only that, there's a few sort of tactics there. So capital letters can work sometimes. They've got to be a bit careful with that because you don't want to be too sort of shouty. But
Spammy. Yeah.
yeah, but it can work if it's particularly if it's like say 2 words or something like that.
Yeah.
Questions, obviously, the tried and trusted questions, that's really good. Just sort of piques a bit of interest. And if it's a question that they've been pondering or asking themselves, that can be pretty solid. And then final one would be, and if it's like got the opportunity for design, then it's making it stand out by possibly the font type, the color, the background, that sort of thing. And then if not, then not everyone's a fan, but I'm quite a big fan of emojis. So I think an emoji can kind of just like draw that little bit of attention in there as the hook. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks for settling that, if I'll put it that way. There's something else that also came to mind, and I guess if you are looking at a few of the verticals you are involved in, like the medical, vet, or legal, maybe in some cases engineering, this might be applicable, and that is the local marketing. But growing up with local marketing, it's always almost been a search thing. You want look Google My Business or whatever. Really, now we have local service ads and things like that. But I'm also very convinced that this also works for social media. And
Mhm.
so I would like you to, take us through that journey of why that is true and what those benefits are. And if there are other verticals aside the ones I've mentioned, where, local marketing through social, B2B, still on
Mm.
B2B,
Yep.
works out great.
Yeah, I mean, I think why it works is that, people like doing people business with somebody in their location a lot of the time. So you can pick up
Mm,
customers that way. I mean, if
mm,
you're B2B, even if you are a B2B though, that is nationwide or even international, I think the localization aspect, if you like, is
mm,
important because people want to know where you're based. So having a solid statement of your location. So with your Google profile, as you mentioned. You can put your location on other social platforms. That's really important to do. Then that is of benefit of anybody that wants to do business with you, because it just gives a bit of extra information, a bit of reassurance in terms of who they are going to be doing business with, and where they're based. And then
Yeah.
if it is, if you are global or you are looking to expand internationally, then that's a whole other thing in terms of getting that right, in terms of language, overseas office presence, maybe overseas phone number, that kind of thing, because you're going to stand more chance of success if you go down that route rather than trying to do it all from the US or the UK. Yes, of course, you can have a head office,
Mhm.
but having a presence, albeit a virtual presence, in the country that you want to do business with, that's well, I'd say it's almost like vital. It's going to be quite hard to succeed without that, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you can have your separate, if required, social profiles around that. Just one specific tip, which is quite interesting. I'm sure they'll change it, and I haven't seen this. Like, no one else has picked up on this as much, or somebody has, but I've not seen it.
Ah,
Threads, and if we might, I can't really go without through this podcast without talking about new stuff like
absolutely.
Threads. Threads. Have you noticed that Threads doesn't have a location? You're not asked for it,
No,
so there's
no,
nothing on there.
no.
So I would say, and practice what I've preached. I've done this myself. I think it's actually quite important to put that in your bio. Where you are based, because of the reasons stated before. People like to know where you're based, because the world is a big place, and if you're not giving any clues as to where you're based, I think that can make a difference whether somebody's going to engage with you and perhaps even ultimately do business with you.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So far so good. You've been sharing a lot of these creative ideas that I think people should be paying attention to. There are many people like me who from today start to look at, you know, optimizing their social media strategies for B2B small businesses, and even identifying what those brands are and how they fall into the B2B small business categories, and what other strategies entail. Uh, I still have a few more questions to ask you before I go, but before we
Sure.
do, yeah, I would like to take a quick commercial break from our sponsor. And if you're listening, it's still the Marketing Leadership Podcast. And when we come back, there are some other very creative ideas that I would like to, extract from Jonathan, if I will, say the word extract. Just stay tuned. It will only take a while, and we will be back. It's the Marketing Leadership Podcast with Dots, and I'm here with Jonathan. We're talking about B2B social media strategies for small businesses. And so, as you know, just picking up from where we left off, with small businesses, it's the hustle, right? And why am I saying hustle? Is because sometimes with hustle, you don't know what's going to happen. You're just getting at it, and there is a tendency for carelessness through that process. And so, I'd like us to end this podcast to help our marketers or business owners, and sort of guide them into doing this well when it comes to social media marketing, and using that to get the kind of commercial value that they want. And with that said, um, we know social media takes time to convert. Even the paid one sometimes, takes slightly more time to convert. It all depends. Um, but where I'm really concerned is how you're able to cut through the noise with your marketing activities and hit the audiences where they are. As we know, social media reach is dwindling down by the day, or maybe it's flat. We don't know. Um, even on the paid side, there are so many options now. If you're not careful, you might be using the wrong approach for your paid ads on social. So when it comes to the best practices to really, I guess, getting as much engagement, social media engagement or conversion rate as possible, what are some of the things you typically do? And for us listening, we would like to know what some of those ideas are.
Sure. So probably split that into two, actually. I would
Okay.
say make use of good technology and tools at the front end of that. So obviously we've seen big advancements in AI with
Mm,
sort of large scale tools like ChatGPT, but there are
mm, mm,
specific sort of tools for even sort of narrowing it down to writing headlines, for example, and things
mm,
like that. So
mm,
have a look at those tools, but just a word of warning, you can't totally rely on them.
mm,
But I think the key point is you mentioned people are hustling all the time with their small businesses, and what AI does, it's a real time saver because it does make things more efficient. And so let's say, you're struggling for ideas
mm.
around a social media content plan, then it
Yeah.
can really help with something like that. You're almost certainly not never going to use all 10 ideas, let's say, if you've asked it for 10 ideas, but you might use two of them, you might use five of them.
Mm,
So that can just sort of get you off to a head start. And similarly, around content, it's probably not going to produce content good enough off the bat for you to use, but you
yeah.
might just be able to pick a phrase out of it. Or if you're super good, this gets us into the whole subject of AI, but very quickly, if you really know your AI prompts, then you can actually instruct it how to write in a particular style, in your house style. So if you do that, that can really help you. Um, and then other tools, like scheduling tools, I would advise people to look at because that can save quite a bit of time. So that can help. Also, I'm not like a massive believer in the right time of the day to post,
Me
but
too.
it can give you some. Yeah, I think it's overdone, isn't it? There's too much stuff on, too much emphasis on it. But that said, you don't want to be posting when people are asleep, so it can help you with that, and it can help you plan ahead and give you a calendar view and all that sort of thing. And then on the other side of it, of course, measurement and analytics. If you're looking at the engagement side, so it's like what is working and what isn't working. I think some people are put off by the whole measurement and analytics side because it can be a bit dull, but also it's regarded as a bit geeky. But I think you can actually break it down and just sort of look at key metrics, for example, and also in terms of what you're getting out of it. You're not analyzing for the sake of analyzing. Ultimately, you just want to see what's working and repeat that, or repeat some of that. What isn't working and stop doing that, or stop doing part of that. It really is as simple as that. And as you rightly said, some of this stuff does take quite a long time. So consistency is important, but over that period of time, if you're doing a lot of measurement, that can really, really help you improve your results over time.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I would like to still take you up on the last statement there with regards to analytical tools and things like that.
Mm,
I mean, before I ask my question, I would add that if you don't have to do it yourself, then hire someone to look at it for you. We are in an
sure.
age of fractional CMOs and fractional marketers. I am a fan of that, full disclosure. But yeah, if it seems too hard to articulate or to conceptualize or just to process, then you might want to find someone else to look at it. But something else I would like to say, which is in relation to time of day obsession, is
Yeah.
that don't look at a piece of content, just one piece of content, and say, oh, because it's gone viral, you want to make every content like that. I see a lot of people do that.
Yep.
I produce a lot of content myself, so sometimes I fall for that. But what you want to do is you want to look at groups of content. You don't want to
Yeah. It's a
just look at
pattern.
one concept.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to
Yeah.
look at a larger pattern, but you also want to look at more than one approach, maybe three, types of content angles or styles. But if you focus on just this one, then over time, your channel might just be this very monotonous. And in the B2B space, people see when you are not authentic from a mile away.
True.
So
Yeah.
I thought I would mention that. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are with attribution. And when I mean attribution, we all know that customer now has the power, whether it's social or any other channel, whether it's B2B or B2C. What we also know is that the process to sale in B2B is not just long,
Mm.
but very complex. They go through different channels to convert.
Mhm.
So a lot
Mhm.
of our listeners already know that. But my question is, from your experience, how have you seen the contribution of social media when measuring, multi-channel attribution journeys? I know the model people use nowadays is the data-driven model. In fact, Google has made that compulsory.
Mm.
But I would just, I guess, just for my own curiosity, see what you have been seeing for the past, decades on how social media has been influencing people. Has the influence been happening throughout the journey? Was it
Mhm.
something at the beginning from an awareness perspective? Was
Yep.
there something that made them make the final decision at the very end?
Mm.
How do you see that? How do you see the placement of social within these multi-channel journeys? Again, I'm not saying people should go back to last click or first click.
Mm.
Do data driven if you have access to it, but I'm just curious.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's changed, over the years. There would have been very, very little likelihood of somebody buying something direct off social 10 years ago. But talking about, I'll switch back to B2B, but talking about B2C, as we know, people are buying stuff straight off TikTok, straight off Instagram now. That wouldn't have happened before. So that has changed. B2B, though, I think it's probably a shift going on there as well, but because of the value of things, because of how business is done historically, it's never going to be like that. So I don't know, somebody. It's just because it's like bigger, even if it is the small sort of business stuff that we're dealing with. Um, no one is just going to be sitting on their sofa watching on TV and then it's going to sort of sign up to some $2,000 a month software package. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, so, but that said, eh, I think its significance though in terms of the front end. You were implying like what end, what's at what point of the journey does it kick in? It's probably more important at the front end than it ever was because it's just part of the whole awareness picture. And I think LinkedIn plays quite a strong role in that on the B2B side. So if you've got an awareness there, that's absolutely vital because that could be initial trust point. And of course, with LinkedIn, you can gradually build that trust as well through content and through messaging, and well, yeah, just through content and through messaging, really. Um, I think possibly even authenticity as well. So historically, I think people have always wanted to check out the website, and that's still really important. And I think that's really where I see, even though I'm a social media guy, just to comment on the website here, I think the website now is more for authority rather than the front end. Social media is more for the front end and the awareness, and the website is more for authority. But that said, LinkedIn is beginning to give more authority, I think. So it's really
Yeah.
important for a B2B small business to have a company page now on LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's been an exciting time, Jonathan. Learning some very new things, a few existing things, but a lot of new things, new thinking with regards to social media strategies, especially for B2B small businesses. So if you're a B2B business, then you want to listen to this podcast over and over again till you succeed. Thank you so much for coming. And I would like to find out where our listeners can find you and learn more about your work.
Sure. So my agency is boostsocial.agency is the URL, and my website URL is pollingersocial.co.uk. And I do a daily newsletter from there to help people keep up with all the changes, and includes tips and stuff like that. So people are very welcome to sign up to that on the homepage.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for you sharing that. That's all for today, guys. Please see more episodes at .lovesmarketing.com, and don't forget to subscribe to the Marketing Leadership Podcast on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. Till next episode, connect the dots.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Dots Loves Marketing. There will be links to any resources mentioned in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.